All right. Now that we've learned all about what's happening in Congress and what's not happening in Burbank, I'll tell you what's happening locally. Because I really want you to hold on to your wallet. You got a good handle on your wallet? I'm going to talk about a couple of issues that you're going to find is interesting in the way your money gets spent. Right now we have a whole group of people that are trying to get us to vote for initiatives in this next election to give them more money. One of them is Metro. They want another half-a-cent sales tax so they can build things south of us and north of us. And when we went to the coordination meeting, I said, you know what, the only way I can support this is if some of this money is going to fix the Newhall Pass. But it's not going to touch the Newhall Pass. So that's one issue. The second one came up to be a parks district. And the county, I'm going to get to what the county is doing. The county is going to, is looking to also get some money from us to build parks and update parks. And it's interesting because they've talked to everybody except us, and we'll get to that in a minute. But first, let's look at what we're doing. I'm surprised Mr. Smythe left. I hope he watches the video. But we have an open space and parkland preservation district. You hear about it referenced at the city all the time as an open space district. It's not. It's an open space and parkland district. Without parks, it could never have qualified as a district in the first place, because its premise is that every piece of property in Santa Clarita is within 3 miles of a park or open space. And it was approved by the property owners in July of 2007. It's not something that we all vote on as voters. Property owners vote on it because it is an assessment which provides a special benefit to property, not a general benefit to the population. And so the objective of the district, and what we were told over and over when they were looking to pass it, was that it was going to be used to facilitate the purchase of undeveloped land in and around the city, and they wanted to preserve open space, and they said 10% of that property that they buy could be identified and used for active parkland. And the reason why they talked about a percentage of property as opposed to dollars is because they expected at the time that active parkland would cost a lot more money than just open space that they were going to use. But as of today, guess how much active parkland they purchased? Anybody have a guess? 0. Yeah. Now, initially, what they did when they were talking about this was the initial assessment was $25 per benefit unit, equivalent benefit unit. And an equivalent benefit unit basically is a single-family dwelling. So if you live in a single-family dwelling, you are one equivalent benefit unit. If you live in a condo, you're less than one benefit. But anyway, they started at $25. They set this district up for 30 years, and they said we're going to increase the minimum assessment $1 every year until the 30 years, and then we'll end up at a $55 assessment. Why, would you ask, would they want that? Well, there was a method in the original plan. They originally said, we got all this land we need to buy right away, so we're going to borrow $30 million and pay it off over 30 years. And we're going to do that with certificates of participation, meaning we're putting up for collateral capital that the city has. And when you do that, the actual debt service payment starts off small and it grows with time. So when it's exactly the opposite of what happens when you buy a house. When you buy a house, you pay more interest at the beginning, and as you pay off principal, it goes down. But in this case, it's the other way around. And it just happens that with the number of people in Santa Clarita and $25, they would get enough money to pay the assessment at the debt service at the beginning of the loan period, and then by the end of the loan period, $55 per household, per equivalent benefit unit would pay the debt service at the end. So they anticipated we're going to have $30 million, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to borrow stuff. Well, it was well planned. Something has to tell me that sometimes maybe it's not as planned as well as somebody might have thought, because they didn't have enough collateral to borrow $30 million. They only had enough collateral to borrow $15 million. And when they borrowed $15 million, the way they did it was they in essence, put up the aquatic center for $15 million. And by the time they put up the aquatic center, you know, City Hall is already paying the debt service for the lawsuit that they lost. They can't do Central Park because they don't own it, and there's already a bond issues with it. There's nothing left. They actually mortgaged the sewer system. It goes on and on. That was the end of the collateral that they had. Now, due to that, they only had $15 million, and if you borrowed $15 million, you would only need half the money to pay the debt service that you had before. Sounds reasonable, right? It's simple math. So if you needed $55 to pay off the debt service for $30 million, you don't need more than $25 to pay off the debt service for the 15. So why are they increasing fees? Why do you think that they're doing that? Well, they tell us they're doing that because they want to buy more land. But let's kind of look at the numbers. You know, I'm a numbers guy. I love numbers. And so I went into the city website and I drug out the engineers' reports, which tell us how much money they're intending to collect, what the collection rate is, how many equivalent benefit units are there. And it just happened, I know I can get the others, but it just happened that on the city's website, the 2008 and 9 engineers report currently is out there, and the 2014 and 15 report is out. The ones in the middle aren't there. I'm sure I could get them if I really wanted them, but this kind of gives you the bookends of this whole situation. So in 2008, there were 64,300 equivalent benefit units. That means when you combine up all the pieces, you can multiply that times 25, and you can see what they're going to collect, $1,600,000. And because the city is growing, and because we're annexing things into the city, that number increases with time. So today, with annexations and growth, well, we have 72,800 equivalent benefit units. And that tells you that if they would have done nothing, they'd be collecting more money today than they were collecting in 2007, right? Because there's more people to collect from. That's the way it works, right? Easy. You know, you can do a little math, and you can see that, by golly, this year they collected $2,293,000. There you go. Well, that's nice. I thought that was what I still kind of wondering what's going on. Well, besides the fact that the equivalent benefits unit went up, they decided to keep asking for more money. So at the same time that was happening, they said, you know, we need more money so that we can buy property. And each time I'd get up and say, you don't need more money. You got money. Say, no, Al, we need more money. So today they're collecting $31.50 against that 72,800, and that's $2,293 and $2,293,200. So the number of contributors over time, from when this started until today, went up by 13%. And the fee increased by 26%. But the amount of money collected went up by 42%. So one would think, I got a lot of money. I'm pretty good at this. Well, it turns out that there's some charges that they want to take out of this. And if you remember, if any of you were here when I was on the accountability panel, the Financial Accountability and Audit panel, this little number, $23,000, came up in the meeting, and I said, what is this $23,000 for? That's not land. They said, that's administration. See, this is part of, I was told it was part of the director, Rick Gould's salary, as part of a Blankenship for going out and looking for property, part of the accounting people, and of course part of the audit that we have to go. So $23,000 is what we need to administer this account. I thought, you know what, $23,000, okay. You know, I'm not going to argue with you. Okay, $23,000 is fine. So I'm no longer on the panel. And when they raised it this time, I started looking at it. I decided to go in and look at the engineer's report, and I found that $23,000 in administration fees had grown to $500,000. I mean, Rick must be spending a lot more time, and they must have a lot more accounting people, but $500,000, and I don't think that's a reasonable number at all. So if you go and you look at that, administration costs are up 207%. To me, it just doesn't make sense. I don't know. Does it make sense to you guys? Doesn't make sense to me either. So I thought about it for a little bit, and I said, you know what? What do they actually end up with after they take out administration fees? And originally, they started out, they had, maybe $1.5 million. And after taking out $23,000. But today, when they take out $500,000, they come out with 1.7 or 1.8 million. You know, that's not much difference than what they started with. Now, are we raising the fees to buy land, or are we raising the fees to pay for administration? Right? That's a good question. So what you look at is that the dollar increase for land purchases is up 13%. And if you look at that 13%, you can see that the amount of money that they have increased for land purchases pretty closely matches the increase in the number of benefit units. And then it gets reduced by the amount of money they take out for administration and for other things, and it doesn't make much sense to me at all. So I thought to myself, what would have happened if they didn't raise the fees? If the number of benefit units just went up and they didn't have this administration fee? And if you look at those numbers, you take 25 times 72,800, it comes out $1.8 million. That's almost exactly what they have after they subtract administration fees from what they're collecting today. So the question is, why are they raising fees? Who are they financing at City Hall? Right? Looks very suspicious to me. I don't know about you guys. Well, let's add insult to injury. I mean, if it's not bad enough to do that, I mean, when you're talking about raising fees, and I asked them this year, you have the money. I didn't know about the $500,000 at the time. I had to go back and look at it. Of course, they didn't tell us that, in the meeting. But on May the 10th, they said, you know what we're going to do? We can refinance the amount that we have. So we're going to refinance it. We're going to refinance the existing open space and preservation debt, and we can project a savings of $2.3 million. There's another $2.3 million. I don't know, maybe administration fees are going to go up again next year. Who knows? Right? And they unanimously approved it. So I'll give you a little summary of the open space and parkland district. Staff borrows half the amount of money they originally proposed. They don't use the money as planned. I can go back and I can bring you the information that they provided when they tried to get this passed, and then I can bring you what they say in the engineer's report, and it's different. How they can spend the money is different. But they say, well, the engineer's report says I can do it, so I can do it. And really, that's true. That's really what they passed. It's not what they sold, but that's what they passed. And then they refinanced to save another $2.3 million, and we're currently collecting a lot more than needed to pay debt, and they're using those increases to support administration. And it tells me that when you don't watch things carefully, they tend to get out of control. All right? So why would I want to vote for another district? So now it's the county that's coming back and saying, and you know, lots of these things are ways around Proposition 13. So assessment district was one way around Proposition 13. These kind of issues are another. Let's add another half a cent sales tax forever to pay for these parks. And so they tried it first in 2014. And it was Proposition P for parks, and it failed. Now, you've heard me talk about this before. And in anticipation of another initiative, the county decided to go spend $3.4 million on a survey. It would have far been better off to put it and applied it to a park. But they did that, and they were going to do a needs assessment of the unincorporated county and the cities. And lo and behold, 20% of the cities declined to participate. They decided it wasn't worth it. We're not going to do it. Okay? And Santa Clarita was one of the ones that decided they're not going to participate. So all these meetings started getting scheduled. There were discussions in the Signal about them. Everybody said, you know, here we go. And I said, why aren't they talking to us? I mean, I've had this happen before. I called the county before in the past in dealing with the homeless shelter in Paul Novak. I called him and said, aren't I still a county constituent? How come you're not talking to us? And they said, well, you live in the city. And I said, well, does that mean I don't live in the county anymore? Right? So I did the same thing here. And I couldn't get anybody to talk to me. So, you know, if I can't get them to talk to me, I'll go to them. So I went to the Acton meeting. And I walked in, and they said, oh, hi, how are you? Who are you? Where do you live? And I told them, and they go, why are you here? And I go, I'm here because I want to register a complaint. I want you guys to come talk to us and tell us about this district. And I'm talking to parks people, and they said, oh, of course we'll do it. No problem at all. Well, that was the first answer that was untrue. And then I started talking to the county, and they declined to meet with us. I mean, I talked to a lot of people. And they declined to meet with us because they said, you're city residents, and we don't want to disturb our relationship with city government. To which my answer is always, but you're disturbing your relationship with your constituents. But they still have never come out here and speak to us about it. And I'll show you the consequences of that shortly. So it was reported in the Signal on January 19th that about the survey. And when Proposition P was proposed, think about this, there's a $23 annual fee. This will, of course, be a special benefit assessment. So we can kind of use some of the knowledge that we have about special benefits to determine how much money there's going to be. And it was to upgrade, originally Proposition P was to upgrade county facilities. And so the city of Santa Clarita decided not to hold a community workshop. The decision was made by city staff. I spoke with Ken Striplin, and Ken said to me, well, what the county wants us to do is they want us to do the needs assessment, and we don't want to expend the effort. And so what we did was we submitted our current park plan. Anybody read it? It's been around for 10 years. It's 10 years old. You remember all the guys that come up to the city, if you've been watching city council meetings, and say, I would like a BMX track. And they go, oh, no, we don't have the money. Well, that's in that plan. For 10 years they've been promising those people that. And it hasn't happened. So a decision was made by city staff. They didn't want to participate, and we'll see what ends up happening. So how this would affect Santa Clarita at that time was unknown. We really didn't know. But now we know. This is planned as a county-wide parks district. Doesn't matter if you live in the city or not in the city. Residents of Santa Clarita will pay if this passes. And the county government will decide where to spend the money. Kind of like the Metro thing. We pay, and they spend the money where they feel like. And so I kept requesting that they send someone out to see us, and they didn't. And like I said, I went to the Acton meeting, but I also called down to County Parks Management. I talked to people in the supervisor's office and got the local supervisor's representatives to tell me, no, they're not coming out because we live in the city. And they continually said that the refusal was based on the city's decision not to participate in the survey. So the guys that represent us weren't doing a very good job of representing us. Now, what happened too was they told me at the time that, you know what, nothing in Santa Clarita is actually going to be done about this because regional county parks are not affected. And we do have a regional county park in Santa Clarita, right? Called Hart Park. Well, I went to an OTNA meeting, and the representative from the Friends of Hart Parks asked me if I knew about the invitational-only meeting that the county held on the Parks District at Hart Park. And I said, no. And so I called the county again, and they told me it didn't happen. Well, anyway, here's what's going to happen to you. The average taxpayer cost for this new proposed tax is $22.50, obviously less than the $23 they wanted last time. They decided that this particular tax will be for an infinite length of time, no sunset clause, collect it forever, okay? And what it's expected to cover is expected to cover $21.5 billion worth of park projects, of which they're generously going to give $159.5 million to Santa Clarita. And so when they reported this in the paper, what they said was what they were going to do was they were going to build a neighborhood park, and this is almost a quote, in the general vicinity of Canyon Country Community Center. Well, we know where that's going to be. The Saugus Community Center, and Rivendell Park. So you can count on the fact that it'll be either on the left side or the right side or the north or the south. I don't know where it's going to be. That doesn't make any sense, right? So other proposed projects that they were listed as being funded by this was, more trails in Sand Canyon. Playgrounds at the Santa Clarita Sports Complex, I think that's already being built. Replacement of infrastructure at Old Orchard Park. I know that's already being built. Santa Clarita, this is what the paper reported, will receive an estimated $750,000 per year to cover major projects and $160,000 a year for maintenance and operating costs, said Jane Beasley, the lady who doesn't answer her phone calls, administrator of Los Angeles County Parks and Open Space District. And we have a park commissioner, Kornthal, who says, look what a great deal this is. They're going to give us money. Isn't that wonderful? Well, that says, Mr. Kornthal, that Santa Clarita will receive a total of $910,000 a year. Okay? Pretty good? What do you think? Except that using the Open Space District benefit unit data of $72,800 and multiplying it by $22.50, we're going to pay $1.6 million a year. Why in the world would I want to go and accept $900,000 if I'm giving him $1.6 million? That's crazy. That's almost as bad negotiation as with the new sheriff's station. Well, maybe it's worse. I don't know. We'll see. But we're going to give away $750,000 every year so that we can be part of this? I don't think so. I don't think that's a good idea. So the county park district will rip us off for a tune of $700,000 a year minimum. And I believe because Santa Clarita is a small player in this district, we'll most likely get sucked in. Do you remember when Ken Polskamp decided to dissolve all the landscape maintenance districts in the city and then reform them? Do you remember when he did that? And you remember when he did that, what did he do? He turned around and he said to the majority of people that were already in the district, when we do this, we're going to reduce your fees, right? And then he added a bunch of areas that were not in the district. And then naturally, the new people were far less in quantity than the people that were going to get a reduction in fees. So they got sucked in, right? I think the same thing's going to happen here. The county is big, right? The county wants this kind of stuff. Hey, we're only one of the 88 cities. We're 250,000 people of the entire, less than 250,000 people of the entire county. So there you go. $700,000 a year minimum probably is going to go to the county district if we're not careful. And of course, we get to lose $500,000 in administration fees at home. So who is really, and what is all this stuff really funding? And I think that's a good reason for us to, loud and clear, that we say no. Vote no on this. And hopefully we'll send a message to the county. All right. Anything else? Okay.